How's it, Yang and dudes and dudettes? It's kind of a late upload, but I was just like searching back through the H3 podcast, and somehow I skipped over this part. Excuse me. And I don't know how I did it because somehow I skipped over it. I must have fell asleep when I was watching it or something. But AI supremacy, why it's so important. Andrew Yang really lays out how scary AI is and what's going on with China and stuff like that. And I don't want to give too much commentary. I literally just want to let a good portion of the video, not all of it, because of course, you guys have seen the podcast, you can just go get it. But I want to bring awareness to the fact that Yang is light years ahead of everybody else. Light years ahead on this issue. It is what it is. You know what I mean? I can't say that enough. Not despite the fact that he even goes on podcasts and stuff like this. That's beside the point. They go on to say that how AI could be the next arms race, the next brinkmanship. You know what I mean? It's there's only 40,000 views. It was a couple days ago. It seems like there's not enough emphasis put on this. So really, just what I'm doing with this video is I just want to bring it to your attention. Because I feel like there's not enough people talking about automation other than Yang, really. So let's go ahead and play the clip, and I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you guys on the other side.
Another issue with China that scares me, frankly, is the race for AI supremacy. I feel like China has such a strong central government, authoritarian, really, that they are able to make these big swinging decisions. Like, for example, just to invest, they decide to invest all this money in AI technology, and here in other developed countries we're lagging behind. And you look at, we had a nuclear race, and it could very well be that the next
this could be the next generation nuclear race,
right? I mean, the next new world will be established by AI. Once you break through on that, and it can start solving its own problems, you all of a sudden you go light years instead of years ahead, right?
Yeah. And
so
you're right to be concerned.
So is that something that leaders are currently working towards, evening the playing field there? Are people thinking about this issue?
There are people thinking about it, but they're not in our government.
Well, that's the problem, right?
Unfortunately. So we at this point have an innovation model that's very much driven by the leading technology companies.
Mm-hmm.
If you rewind several generations, you had all of these government scientists in lab coats, like buried under a mountain in New Mexico or wherever, coming up with things. And then now all of those scientists work for SpaceX, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Microsoft to some extent. So they are deeply concerned that China is going to leapfrog us in AI. I'm deeply concerned. There was a joke that people in AI used to tell. It was, how far behind is China in AI from the U.S.? And the answer was 12 hours, because they would wake up and then see what we did.
Wow.
Now that joke doesn't really work because...
Is it that available? They can just see what we did?
The private companies, they don't make their stuff publicly available.
Right.
But there were some labs and universities that would publish new stuff, and then they would...
And so China was just like, oh, great.
Well, so here's the broader context. The West is better on research and breakthroughs than China. We came up with this machine learning AI development tool that now China has. And machine learning gets stronger and smarter based upon how much data you feed to it. Like, data's like food for the algorithms. So China now has a massive lead in the level of data. And China also has a massive lead in the level of computing infrastructure that they make available to their firms. So in China, AI is a national obsession. More Chinese watched AI beat the best human Go player, the Chinese game of Go,
right,
than watched the Super Bowl in the U.S.
Wow.
So AI's massive national and cultural priority.
Is this an effort from the government to get interest in this thing that they see as vitally important to their future success?
Yes.
That's very interesting. It's almost like a propaganda machine.
In this case,
And it
though,
is
they're right and
fascinating,
it's
though.
smart.
Yeah.
Like I wish we did the same thing. So they have more data, and then the government says, look, we're going to spend billions, even tens of billions of dollars on computing infrastructure as far as the eye can see.
Mm-hmm.
Like islands covered with server farms, like straight out of the Matrix. And I've sat with the leading technologists in Silicon Valley who looked at me and said, look, we'll spend $1 billion, $2 billion on computing infrastructure, but we can't spend $10 billion. And that's what the Chinese are doing. And the Chinese are saying, hey, go ahead and use it. AI companies, not our AI, like Chinese AI companies,
Right.
use this $10 billion infrastructure. You have more data. Now you have more computing power. So our AI will be smarter, faster. And they are generally correct. I asked a group of Iowans last week. I said, okay, so right now they have more access to more data than we do, and they have more computing infrastructure. The only way for the U.S. to win this would be if we have another breakthrough past machine learning. How many of you think that that the U.S. is going to take the lead based on another breakthrough? And like no hands went up. And I said, how many of you think that the Chinese will take a lead based upon more data and more computing infrastructure? Like every hand went up. And I looked at them and I said, I agree with you. Like if you have more data and more computing infrastructure, you're probably going to win this thing. So what we have to do is we have to go to our technology firms, and as president, it'll be my pleasure to do this. I'll say, look, we get it. We will match the Chinese multi-billion-dollar computing infrastructure, take it off your balance sheets to maintain global leadership in this field. And in return, then we'll ask them for a few things too. Essentially, we'll ask them to allow us to have someone that keeps them from destroying humanity or doing something that
Something
really
small like that.
So I sat with a technologist who said to me flat out, he said, look, our incentives right now on AI are just to go as fast as possible because we're competing with the other tech firms, we're competing with the Chinese. And if all of our incentives are to go as fast as possible, at one point, one of us is going to do something really problematic / disastrous. And,
Do you have a...
and he
a
said, like, please, we could use some guidelines on this because if you put guidelines on us and the other firms we're competing against, then we'd be less likely to break something.
Right. Worried about the other guys, probably. What is one of these scenarios, for example, where someone who's moving too fast in the development of AI does something that becomes harmful, disastrous to our society? What's an example of that?
So you could have AI that, I mean, I don't want to scare people, but
Go ahead. Let's get scared.
so let's just say, so I'll just say something that, like you could have weaponized AI that can hack just about any public infrastructure that you can't encrypt and protect because the AI is sophisticated enough where it can break through. And then you could imagine if that AI gets into the wrong person's hands or wrong organization's hands, then it could be essentially like holding our infrastructure hostage. Or maybe not even holding our infrastructure hostage, maybe just set it loose. And then we wind up with the lights off for quite some time. I mean, there are scenarios like that. There are other darker scenarios around, and these are more the science fiction level where like the AI gets its own agenda. But there are realistic scenarios where AI does something it's not intended to do in ways that that does very large scale damage.
I'm thinking now. I want to think practically about what this means. So China is on. We're in an AI race, arms race. What's the end game? Is it hacking? Is it digital warfare? I mean, what is it that will give them the edge, practically speaking?
So if you were to win in AI, economy-wide, that would mean that you could accomplish efficiencies of scale that other economies would not, and that your firms would be smarter, your software would be more effective, everything would just start working better. And then it's very hard to compete with that if you are another country. Let's imagine, for example, that you had AI that had figured out mobility to the point where you could have autonomous trucks and cars everywhere. And then there was one country that had that software and it was actually safe, the level of savings for an economy of having autonomous vehicles would be hundreds of billions of dollars a year. And so if you had access to that software and then say, hey, this will save your economy hundreds of billions, I'll license it to you for 20 billion, 30 billion, or whatever
Right.
it is, then other countries would start doing that. And then that would be,
They're the new. It's the new oil, as you say.
yeah, data as a
Upset.
new oil.
Yeah.
And so if you had the AI and you could harness the data effectively, then you win at an almost unprecedented scale.
All right, so I don't have much to say, but it's crazy to me how our politicians and politicians of the world have not been on top of this. People want to talk about fear mongering and stuff like that. This is something to actually be scared about. This is something to actually be worried about. This is something that you can't fix with a trade policy. You know what I mean? Like it's that serious, and this is another reason why Yang needs to be president, because nobody else is taking this that serious, and those who are saying they're taking this that serious is only doing it because Yang was the first one to talk about it. And that's kind of the issue here. You know what I mean? Like Yang said originally, either I'll become president or everybody will start sounding an awful lot like me. So, that's where I'm going to leave it at. I know there's not much commentary in this video. I'm not adding much to it. Really, I just want to bring awareness to the fact that this stuff is serious. So, there you go, guys. That's all I got for you. I do appreciate it. And maybe I'll have that pre-show debate Q&A up tomorrow. I don't know. Anyway, I'll see you guys down in the comment section below.